So let's get started. I'm going to minimize that. And just wanted to start off by showing you where I've got some handouts or handout related to the topic today. If you go to the website bridgeclass.co.uk, you can click on handouts and slides. And if you scroll down there under the section of defense, there's a table of standard leads. So if you're not familiar with that, do have a look at that or print it out. And we'll be talking about some of those leads in the talk today. So what we're going to talk about is opening leads and different kinds of sequences. And we'll talk about what do you lead if you have a 3-card or longer sequence when you lead the top of a sequence. We'll talk about top of a near 3-card sequence and what that is. We'll talk about an internal sequence and how that differs from a near sequence or a sequence. And then we'll talk about other times you may make a lead from a long suit perhaps, where it's normal to lead your 4th highest from a suit with 1 or more honors, but where you don't have any sequence of honors. And if you decide to lead from a suit with no honors, that the normal opening lead is the 2nd highest from a suit with no honors. We'll look at examples of all of these in a moment, but I want to focus mainly on the top of an internal sequence. And it's a lead that sometimes people forget about, and yet it is the right lead in some situations. So do interrupt if you have any questions, but let's start by looking at what is considered one of the best leads in bridge. This is both on opening lead and later on. If you have a sequence of 3 cards headed by an honor, 3 or more cards headed by an honor, that is nearly always a very attractive lead. And it should be top of your list when you're thinking about leading. It's both an attacking lead in that you hope to force out any honors that declarer has, and it's a relatively safe lead in that it's unlikely to help declarer make any extra tricks. So leading from a 3-card or longer sequence headed by at least 1 honor is attractive there. Perhaps second choice is when you've got a near sequence, and that has a particular definition in bridge of 2 cards headed by an honor, for example, King, Queen, missing the 3rd card, for example, the Jack, and then having the 4th card. So King, Queen, 10, for example, or Queen, Jack, 9. And the pattern on all of those is 1, 2, 4. That is, you've got the 1st and 2nd card of the sequence, you're missing the 3rd one, and you have a 4th card. And in all those situations, you also lead the top card. And that's both against no trump and against the suit contract. And again, that's also an attractive lead. It's an attacking lead, and you're unlikely to be able to be helping declarer make any extra tricks. The other one I want to talk about then is top of an internal sequence. And this is slightly different, although it looks a little bit similar. And that's when you've got a pattern like an honor, for example, the King there, and then a break of 1 or more cards, and then at least 2 cards in sequence headed by an honor. So King, Jack, 10 is an example of that. And if you decide to lead from that holding, you lead the top of the internal sequence. You lead the Jack there. And similarly, Ace, Jack, 10, the normal lead there is the Jack, except if you decide to lead from a suit that contains an ace against a suit contract, then that's not normally a good choice. But if you do decide to lead that suit, you would lead the ace. However, if you have something like Ace, Jack, 10 against a suit contract, I would probably try not to lead that suit, find another lead. But against no trump contract, something like Ace, Jack, 10 is quite an attractive lead. The pattern on that one is, as it says, 1, 4, 5. You've got the ace, you're missing the second and third cards, the king and the queen, but you've got the fourth and the fifth. And also other patterns like queen 10, 9, king 10, 9, ace 10, 9, and ace, queen, jack. And it's normal to lead the top card of an internal sequence if you decide to lead one of those suit holdings, but they're not so attractive against a suit contract. And if you do lead that one of those where you've got the ace, it's normally considered better to lead the ace than to lead a lower card. Another very popular lead is fourth highest, and that's a very popular lead, especially if you have a long suit against no trump. You would lead the fourth card from either of those holdings there, the 8 there, or the 4 in the second one, because you have one or more honor, but you don't have any kind of sequence. So obviously in those situations, you're hoping your partner can contribute an honor and will help you set up that suit. And another one is king, queen, 8, 6, 2. Against no trump, you would lead the fourth highest there. If you decide to lead from that suit against a suit contract, then you would lead the king. So in other words, in no trump, you have to have a 3-card sequence or near sequence, but against a suit contract, it's better to lead the king there if you decide to lead that suit rather than the fourth highest. The reason against a suit contract is you're very unlikely to be able to make that many tricks in this suit, and it's probably better to drive out the ace with the king and then make at least one trick there. Whereas in no trump, you lead a low card. Even if it gives away a trick, you hope to regain the lead and take a number of tricks there. And then similarly, if you have an ace, it's normal to lead, that counts as an honor, and against no trump, without any kind of sequence headed by an honor there, you would lead the 7. The 9, 8, 7 does not count as a sequence when we're talking about leads here, because it's not headed by an honor. The 9 is not an honor. So you would lead the 7 there. But again, if you decided to lead that suit against a suit contract, you would lead the ace rather than underlead the ace. So against no trump, it's fine to lead away from an ace, but in a suit contract, you should not be leading away from an ace. Another common lead, if you decide to lead from a suit with no honors at all, is to lead a highish card. And some people will, quite popular system is to lead mud. So if you have, for example, a 5 or a 4 card suit with no honors, you would lead a highish card, and that gives the impression that you have no strength in that suit. And you lead a middle card also if you decide to lead from a 3-card sequence there. And in all cases, the lead of a highish card is meant to give a message to a partner that you don't necessarily have any strength in that suit. But if you have, for example, a jack, and you decide to lead this suit, it would be normal to lead your 4th highest there. The 4th highest suggests you have at least one honor in the suit, and the jack is an honor, and it suggests that you want that suit returned. And I'll just mention that some people, instead of playing 2nd highest from a suit with no honors, like to lead the top of nothing against no trump. So in those first 2 examples, they would lead the 9 there, and that is perhaps even clearer that that's not a suit you particularly like. So one way of remembering that is you lead high to say you hate the suit. So that's not exactly that you hate it, but lead high to say that you have no strength in that suit. So what can we say about these leads? Well, I've got a chart here that sort of talks about how attractive each of those leads are. And right at the top, I think this comes top of a sequence, top of a 3-card sequence, which is attractive in nearly all situations. Behind that is top of a near sequence. That's where you've got the top 2 cards and the 4th card, the pattern being 1, 2, 4. And then below that, one that is often forgotten about is the top of an internal sequence. And that is attractive, especially if you've got a long suit, a 5-card suit against no trump. Not so attractive if you say only got a 4-card suit, because you could easily be giving away a trick, and not so attractive against a suit contract either. And then below that, in terms of attractiveness, if you can't lead any of those sequences or near sequences or internal sequences, you would often lead your 4th highest, especially with a long suit against no trump. And if you don't lead that, then you would often lead, perhaps if you decide to lead from a suit with no honors, then it's normal to lead a highish card, either the 2nd highest, or some people lead the top of nothing against no trump. And that can be fairly passive. Passive means you're not necessarily trying to set up tricks in that suit, but you hope you don't give away anything as well. I should mention, of course, when you're leading against a suit contract, another lead that can be quite attractive is a lead from shortages, a singleton or a doubleton, where you lead the top of a doubleton. But these are the leads you would, on the chart there, the ones that you would think about against no trump, where it would be very unusual to lead from a short suit against no trump.
Tony,
yes.
How is all that affected if your partner has bid and you want to lead your partner's suit?
Right. So if you decide to lead your partner's suit, you should still make the same lead here. So if your partner has bid a suit, it's generally right to lead exactly the same card. The only thing you have to sometimes be thinking about is if your partner has bid a suit, you'll be inclined to lead it, even if you don't have much in it. But you should lead the same card as you would lead. There is a saying in bridge which has no merit, which is that you should, if you're leading your partner's suit and you have an honor, you should lead the honor. And that is incorrect. You should not do that. Of course, you would lead an honor if, for example, you only had a doubleton. You would lead the top card of any doubleton. But otherwise, you would lead the same card as you would lead whether or not your partner has bid that suit. So I've got a few questions for you, and I've got a few polls on this subject. And here's the first of them. You decide to lead this suit, perhaps it's against no trump, and you've got the King 10, 9, 7, 2. And I'm going to launch the first poll of the afternoon, which is, what would you lead? So have a little think about it. And the question is, you've decided to lead this suit, which card should you lead? And most of you have gone for the 7, and 35% have gone for the 10. And I have to tell you that most of you have not chosen what is considered the normal lead here. The correct lead here is the 10, because this counts as an internal sequence. You've got the king, then a gap, but then you've got the 10 and the 9. So the correct choice here is the 10. And it may, on many hands, it may not make any difference what you lead, whether you choose the 10 or the 7. But I think it's important because the 10 is considered correct, and it will help in some situations. And this is one of those situations. If you lead the 10 and the cards are as arranged here, can you see that if declarer calls for a low card from dummy, your partner now doesn't need to play the queen? Okay, so if declarer plays the 3, you would maybe play the 6 high to encourage, and you can see your partner doesn't need to play the queen on this one. If you had led the 7, which most of you did, and declarer plays low from dummy, then your partner will probably play the queen. They have no, in fact, if they don't play the queen, declarer will win with the 8. So if you play the queen, that will lose to the ace, let's say, And now declarer may well get a second trick with the jack. But if you lead correctly the 10, the top of an internal sequence, then you are, if you like, trapping the jack, and declarer can only make one trick there. Any comments or questions, particularly from the majority of you who decided to lead the 7 there?
Tony?
Hello.
If my partner led the 10, wouldn't I be tempted to think that's top of rubbish?
No, the 10 is an honor, and if your partner leads a 10, it's of one of two holdings. They either have a sequence headed by the 10, or they have an internal sequence, something like this. Okay, so the lead of a 10 should indicate some kind of sequence, either 10, 9, 8 or something like that, or an internal sequence with one higher honor. But in
so that means that if you want to lead top of rubbish, you shouldn't lead anything above a 9.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you.
If you have an honor and the 10 counts as an honor, and you decide to lead that suit, then you would lead that as top of a sequence or 4th highest if you have an honor but no sequence.
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, the 10 is an important, is different from leading, for example, the 9. The lead of a 9 would suggest that they've got, you know, nothing in their hand, but the lead of a 10 is different. And I hope you can look at this holding. There are many situations where it won't make a difference, but there are a few situations where it's better to lead the 10 there than to lead your 4th highest.
Sorry, Tony, a 9 could be the 4th highest in some situations.
The 9 could possibly be the 4th highest. I mean, the 9 is often not the 4th highest because it's quite a high card, but your partner might be able to work out whether it could be your 4th highest or not. I can't think of an example of hand, but I think 9 could possibly be your partner's fourth highest. More often than not, though, it is not your partner's 4th highest, and it was likely to be a high card from a suit with no honors as a part, or top of nothing if that's what your partner has agreed to play. Anyway,
Sorry, Tony, for clarification, what would King Jack something?
King Jack what?
King Jack 10-9, you lead the Jack.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
King Jack 10-9, you would lead the Jack. That counts as an internal sequence.
Yeah, so that then I see it.
Here's another one for you to have a go at. This time you decide to lead from Ace Jack 10-5-2 against 3 no trump, and the second poll question is, what should you lead? And most of you here, 60% have gone for the Jack and 40% have gone for the 5. Well, the correct lead here from Ace Jack 10 is the Jack. The Jack, Ace Jack 10 counts as an internal sequence, and the normal lead there is the Jack. When your partner leads the Jack, it either means they've got something like this with an internal sequence, or they've got a sequence headed by the Jack, Jack 10-9, something like that. It's one of those two holdings. And in a situation like this, leading the Jack, it will work out better than leading 4th highest. If you think about this, if you lead the 4th highest, the 5 here, declarer will be able to win this trick with the 9, and then they will at some point make a second trick because they've still got the king and the queen. If you lead the Jack here, let's suppose declarer wins this trick with the king or the queen. Now, although they've won one trick, if later on your partner gains the lead and is able to lead this suit back, so if East gains the lead and is able to lead a spade back, now declarer won't make any more tricks because declarer's king and 9 are trapped by the Ace and the 10. and you'll hold declarer to just one trick, while you are able to make 4 tricks here. Whereas leading 4th highest, as I said, will give declarer two tricks in a holding like this. So well done the 60% of you who said lead the jack here. That is the correct lead here, top of an internal sequence. And I've got one last poll for you here, this one. This time you've got king, queen, 10, 9, 2. And the last question is the same as before. What would you lead against 3 no trump, let's say? And 75% have gone for the king. And then the next most popular answer is the 9, and then the queen and the 10. And let's have a switch back and have a look at this. Well, you have a near sequence here. You have the first 2 cards and then a gap and then the next card. You also sort of have an internal sequence as well, but the near sequence takes precedence over that. So because you've got the king, queen, 10, you treat that as a near sequence and you lead the king there. So well done to the majority of you who led the king in that. And I hope you can see if you lead a low card like the 9, it would give declare a chance to make 2 tricks here, because they would be able to win the first trick with the jack, and then they've still got the ace. But if you lead the king, well, one possibility is they may win the ace, or if they let it go, then you will lead the suit again. Now, in this situation, if you lead the king against no trump, your partner is meant to play an honor. And there's another video on this topic of the lead of a king in no trump and how you should play in that situation. But basically, East here, if they had an honor like the jack, they should have played it when you lead the king. If they don't, they give you a count signal, which here they play a low card to indicate that they started with 3 cards in that suit. And you can see that if you can work that out, and if you guess that that's how the cards lie, then if they let you win the king, you can carry on in this suit, but you have to carry on with the queen. Otherwise, if you play the low card, they could win 2 tricks again with the jack and then the ace later on. So again, it's right to lead the king, and it's a slightly tricky one. If they don't win that suit, you need to try to work out whether it's safe to continue with the suit again. Any comments or questions on that? So I hope you all remember that and look at the handout if you're unclear on any of it. Just wanted to end with a short slide on etiquette reminder. This applies to online bridge as well as face-to-face bridge. So do greet your opponents, which most of you do this, I know, when they arrive, and you know, say hi, how are you? It's nice to have a few words with the opponents. Don't forget you're meant to alert or announce your partner's alertable bids, and try not to criticize your partner or give any comment on your opponent's play or bidding. Okay, unless you are asked for your opinion, do not volunteer your advice and say, oh, you should have done this. So please try and remember that. Just as in face-to-face bridge, the same applies on real bridge. Generally, don't talk at all during the round because it's distracting to people. But do say things like well done partner or well done to opponent, but otherwise you shouldn't really comment during the round. But by all means, I know a number of you do this, stay online afterwards and discuss the hands, and a number of you, I think, are improving your bridge by being able to discuss things in a constructive manner. And keep your background noise to a minimum, and you can reduce the volume for an individual by sliding the volume icon below the person's picture. But that was all I wanted to talk about today. Are there any questions?
Tony, the last slide you showed, the king, queen, and we laid the king. and you said if your partner has got a jack, he should play the jack.
Correct.
You explain that, please. I don't know, don't understand.
Okay. Well, I can't quite go into it in a lot of detail here, but there is a video. I'll put a link to it on the lead of a king against no trump, and it basically, when your partner leads a king against no trump, they will have a holding something like this, a certain holding, and the what you should play when they lead a king is you should play a jack in this situation. If East had the jack, they should play it, and the reason for that is it clears up the position for your partner. I hope you can see that if East had the jack, then on the lead of the king, they should play it, because your partner will have the king, queen, 10 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And by playing the jack, they now know exactly the situation. They know their suit is good. If you fail to play the jack, it means you don't have it. And then they need to think about what it does show. So there's a whole separate video on this subject of the lead of king versus no trump. And I advise you to have a look at that for a little more information on it.
Okay,
I'll include a link to it at the end of this video.
okay.
Oh gosh, we've got a bit of
Understand.
storm coming now. Any other questions? We'll end the talk there, and you can join the game. And if you need a partner, sit at a table and call me. Or if you want to arrange a partner here, you can unmute yourselves and speak up, and maybe someone will like to play with you.